So we are officially live, gentlemen. What's up, Facebook land?
Facebook land.
Facebook land. Live from the Las Vegas Cigar Outlet. Cigar Week here in Las Vegas. And we have been blessed with the presence of Mr. Steve Saka. Yes.
That's a bit of a stretch.
I like it. Come on, we're blessed. We are blessed with your presence and blessed with gifts. Blessed with gifts. Looky, looky. Looky, looky. No, oh yeah, you want me? Yeah, sure. You want to hold it? Yeah, let me have the hat. Okay. What's up?
You know, another year, man. Once a year. It's always like deja vu when we come here for the trade show.
It is.
It literally seems like it was just yesterday, but it was still a whole year ago. But like you're like, wait a minute, I did this exact same thing and it felt like it was just 2 weeks ago. I mean,
this is very true.
Time just flies so quickly anymore.
How long do you guys spend getting ready? 2-3 months?
Well, I mean, look, you're working on the products that you're planning on introducing often a year ahead of time.
Sure.
So, I mean, as the years go by, the actual preparation for the show gets less and less. Plus, two, you know, we don't really do the trade show in a big way. We have a very functional booth.
You got the nice couches.
We got nice couches. Well,
I remember that from last year.
They'd be like, "Hey, where's Steve? Oh, he's on the couch."
Yeah, as a fat man,
fellow fat man,
and you're gonna spend 4 days doing it.
You need comfortable couches.
Yeah, why not be comfortable?
I agree.
I mean, because so many of these booths have those rental pogo stick chairs. I don't want to sit on that. I'm like a fat popsicle on one of those things.
Look at that. We've already hit it right now. Mitch Smith is like, looking great, buddy. Congrats on the weight loss. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, I wish I could say it was voluntary.
It's not for health reasons.
Well, it is for health reasons, but not because of health reasons.
Right, okay, got you.
What it was, I don't know, it was like 5 months ago I was at the Great Smoke, and Nimish from Rocketel, he's been losing weight. You know, I think he was like at 325 or 330, and he got down to like 280 over the last year or so.
Wow,
and
good for Nimish.
So he just kind of came up to me and said, "Hey, Saka, I'm feeling a lot better. You're starting to get to your heaviest," which I was. I was at almost 390 pounds, and he's like, "You really ought to think about it because I feel so much better." And I said, "Yeah, I know, man." And he goes, "But what about our friend Abe? Because Abe has really grown a lot. And Abe's had everything. He's had the gastric bypass and whatnot, and he's lost a tremendous amount of weight and gained a tremendous amount of weight. But the one thing about Abe is he's uber competitive, so we agreed to do this crazy bet. And basically, by the trade show, you had to lose 15% of your body weight, or you would have to do an event in drag."
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So there is no first place. This was kind of a participation award. Basically, if you made the 15%, you didn't have to do it. If you didn't make the 15%, you would have to do it. So all three of us could have lost, but it ends up that all three of us won. So we're already talking about a second bet where who loses the least 4 months from now would end up being the loser. So that way we can satisfy our adoring public with one of us in a dress and a wig and lipstick and heels.
Oh, man. I want to host
and it'll be good, too, because
that's funny.
The thing is, that as much as I rapidly lost 60 pounds, I'll rapidly put 70 pounds back on. So having having a second bet will, kind of like, okay, well, there's another 4 months to keep it going.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
You know what? Once you get down to that weight, and I'm not a good person to talk about it because I need to lose 50, 60 pounds as well, but I know I have done that in the past, and you get to feel so damn good.
Yeah.
You feel so much better at night.
Yeah.
Well, you've been on a weight loss kick, too.
I lost 17 pounds.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, you're looking much better.
Much better. Can't complain.
Yeah.
And you're wearing some new shirts.
New shirts.
Stuff fits, right?
Of course.
All right. Well, David's joining us from Chandler, Arizona. Kevin's on. Kevin and Cuffs here.
Steve, tell us about the blend here.
We're smoking Sin Compromiso.
Sin Compromiso.
It's our flagship brand, our top of the line. It's a really unique cigar because it's very heavy and it's very rich, but it's also very creamy and very smooth.
Yeah.
Which is a very weird combination.
Mm-hmm.
That you can have a cigar that has that much flavor, but also that much creaminess to it. And it's done in these soft press sizes. And the thing that probably makes it the most unique is the wrapper. It's a variation of a San Andreas Negro hybridized seed. It's a seed that I get grown for me already, but we ended up cultivating the crop differently. I had read this crazy article about these Japanese farmers that grow these musk melons. They're called Royal Crown musk melons, and these melons sell for $150 to $250 for just one melon.
Wow.
And what they do is this vine will support like 22 melons, and what they do is they pull all the blossoms off but two. They let 2 melons start, and then they choose which of the 2 melons they think is going to be the better melon, and they destroy the other melon. So in the end, you have this vine that's normally dedicated to grow 20 to 22 melons, only growing 1 melon. And the idea is that this melon ends up becoming, and then they also do this really weird Japanese thing where they rub it and they sing to it and yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? But the basic concept is that all the nutritional fortitude of the plant ends up being dedicated to the one melon, which then makes the melon sweeter, juicier, fleshier, and it really is. It's an amazing melon. You can buy one off eBay and get it shipped to your house. It's called a Royal Crown musk melon. So I always wanted to try that with tobacco. So 3 years ago, we did a pilot crop, a test crop, where we basically strip off the entire bottom half of the plant, and we don't even grow it. We only grow the top half of the plant. And by doing so, it essentially means by growing the top 50%, we're really throwing away about 75% of the tobacco because you get so much more weight from the lower leaves are so much larger. So, but I have to pay the farmer for 100% of the tobacco because I'm the one telling him to throw away everything on the bottom. And we pull it off the plant just as it starts to leaf out. So no nutrition goes to those leaves at all.
So how does that change the profile?
What ends up happening is I find the tobacco just to be sweeter. I find it to be richer. And look, you always wonder if you're buying into your own bullshit. So, I mean, the way I ended up making the ultimate decision to go forward with a real crop 2 years ago was I had the factory make me 50 cigars using the normal San Andreas Negro that they grow for me, same seed, and then another 50 cigars using I call it cultivo tanto, which means foolish cultivation, because it's foolish, with the cultivo tanto wrapper. And I could tell the difference 100% of the time. So once I had bought in that it was more than just a dog and pony story, I then committed to doing it. Look, I'm in a business where we are essentially doing the same thing that we've done for the last 200 years. We're all selling something brown and round. It was going to be my flagship brand for the company. So I wanted to take some sort of extra step that made it uniquely different. And I'm really very pleased with the result. And I mean, it made, I don't know, made probably 20, 25 different top lists from last year. It was number one on about 5 or 6 of them. Probably the biggest number one it got was in Cigar Snob magazine. It was their number one cigar of the year, and it's been selling very, very well for us.
Excellent.
So
what do you think about that? The idea of the rating stuff.
I'm indifferent to it. I mean, listen, I understand the appeal of it, but with all ratings, they're always a matter of it's an individual taster's individual opinion. I mean, I don't expect consumers to like every blend I make because all of my blends are very unique and different.
Sure.
What I do expect is I expect for the quality of the materials to always be top shelf. I expect for the construction to always be exceptional.
Yeah.
I expect for the blend to be consistent for what it's supposed to be. But when it comes down to do you like a Sin Compromiso or do you like a Sobremesa or you like a Mi Querida, that's really a matter of personal taste. So I don't really take too much stock and issue with it.
Sure.
I mean, obviously you prefer to be at the top of the ratings.
Right.
And I've been blessed with that. I mean, I think I don't think we've launched a single core blend that didn't end up in the top 3 consensus-wise every year.
Right.
I mean, Sober Mesa ended up on the top 25 list 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's an exceptional cigar.
That rarely happens.
Yeah.
Because normally it's the year that it's new. If it's really good, you'll get up there, but you won't repeat that because, look, the media and people that watch on Facebook and everybody's always interested in what's the newest and the next and the latest and the greatest. So actually getting something that, does repeat hits.
Yeah.
That's and I'm also starting to notice so like on Sober Mesa, I'm noticing now that we're starting to slowly bridge out of just the consumer geek crowd. Because, look, if you're really into cigars, you're in the industry, you know who Steve Saka is. But if you're an average cigar consumer, you have no clue who Steve Saka is, nor do you care, nor will you probably ever care. So it's really how do you reach those customers?
Yeah.
And that really just takes time. And now the uber geek guys that are really follow me, they help to spread the gospel. But eventually it's going to come down to the guy that really doesn't care who Steve Saka is. And he's just going to decide, hey, I really like this Sober Mesa or I don't like this Sober Mesa. So what I'm starting to notice like on Sober Mesa and on Mi Querida, I'm starting to get more of that just normal, regular pull on the brand. You know what I mean? Rather than just the one hit kind of, oh my God,
Now, are you finding yourself placed in humidors that are less boutique-y? Like it's becoming a little bit more mainstream?
Yeah, I'm seeing more of that. I'm seeing more shops that stock legacy products are wanting to bring us in. Look, I think most retailers have kind of come to a conclusion that there's a balancing act between having legacy, big name, known brands, and then also having the smaller, lesser known craft or boutique brands, and that they need to have a mix of all of it in their store to ultimately be effective.
Yeah, I agree.
And at the same time, though, these retailers are saying, hey, I can't have every boutique, every small company. So they tend to say, what are going to be maybe the 3 or 4 or 5 that I'm going to focus on? And luckily for me, I seem to be one of the better bets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That in a retailer's mindset, they're saying, okay, if I have to do business with some of the smaller companies, which are the better of the smaller companies, and I think long-term, their brands have the capacity to do well with my customers. And we seem to be making that cut for a lot of retailers in their own mental calculation.
Yeah.
But look, it's still a hand sell brand. It still requires introduction to the consumer.
Yeah.
He needs to be explained to why to smoke it. I mean, are you guys a white label account?
For
Davidoff.
No.
Okay, good. So
no one in Vegas is.
Okay, except for
the
fries.
strip.
Okay. So
not even fried.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh, they keep it themselves.
Yeah, they keep it themselves. It's only on the strip.
I had one retailer say to me, quality-wise, your cigars are just of the same quality as those, but they're, about half the price and double the flavor.
Yeah.
And
I would agree.
And so for me, the biggest challenge is getting consumers to try the product and for them to make the decision on their own.
Yeah.
Because in the end, ratings are nice and top lists are nice, but ultimately there's only one judge that counts, and that's the guy that opened his wallet and spent his money and gets to decide whether it's for him or not. And what I'm hoping that eventually I end up in that guy's rotation when he goes into the store and he picks up 5 or 6 cigars. Maybe one of mine will be the 5 or 6, or he'll like one of my products enough that it'll become one of his daily cigars where he'll buy a box, and when the box gets down to the last 2 or 3, he'll come in and say, hey, I need another box.
Yeah.
I was surprised when we had the Chinese customer.
Right.
All the way from China. She was in town. They knew about your cigars.
Right.
They bought every single box that we had.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is great because so that consumer knew. So she knew about the cigar and she was willing to go out of her way. The question is, how do you get the average person who doesn't know? Because there's a reason why she did that. The cigars are really that exceptional. But it doesn't matter that the cigars are exceptional if the average consumer doesn't know it, doesn't even know to try it. And look, and you're asking the customer, like with a Sin Compromiso, it's not an inexpensive cigar. It's a top shelf cigar at a top shelf price, so it's a $15 to $18 purchase. So that consumer has to say, okay, I could buy a Padron Anniversario, or I could buy a Liga Privada, or I could buy a Davidoff. They have to make the conscious decision that, oh, well, this cigar is of equal caliber to those cigars to make that purchase. The in-the-know consumer, they're made that decision, and that's why we're doing so well as a company. But the in-know consumer, there's only one of those for 100 others. So I'm optimistic, to be honest with you. I think that as more people discover our brands and our products, I think our sales will just continue to grow.
Well, we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
When we talk about oh, this cigar's not moving, oh, that cigar's not moving, and I know he hears me say this. I say, well, then let's do our job. Like, our job is to put cigars in people's hands, to try to put that, it is.
But JJ, ultimately, it's not really your responsibility. I mean, your responsibility is to provide a good environment for your customers, provide a well-stocked humidor, which you guys obviously do. You have a massive humidor for Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To provide good customer service. I mean, in the end,
our customer service.
But you make the same profit no matter what is sold out of the humidor. So whether you sell one of my cigars, or you sell one of Nicholas' cigars, or you sell one of whoever's cigars, is not really relevant. What's really relevant to you is that consumer came to your store to make that purchase. So it's really right. So it's really ultimately my responsibility to get the consumer to come and ask you for the cigar. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love for you guys to champion, and that's what you find. You find that in certain stores, they absolutely love my product. The people that work in the store, and as a result, because they absolutely love the product, they sell a lot of it. I mean, there are some stores that I'm already doing 10% of their total sales on my brands. Okay, but that's because the owner, the clerks are just really they just I love mi querida. I smoke it every day. Yeah. So when a guy comes in and wants a heavier Maduro cigar, it's always one of the 3 or 4 that he always recommends.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's a guy that comes in that smokes XYZ Maduro or full body cigar, it's like, well, you like this? Have you tried one of Steve's brands? Well,
right.
Steve. Okay, let me show you. Go ahead and try this.
Yeah.
You're going to like it. So I think that when you talk about responsibility, it's ultimately putting the customer on the cigar that they enjoy. But if they're unfamiliar with a new brand or one that's up and coming, or a boutique a company like Dunbarton, then maybe they can get to try some of your blends.
But I think if I do my job right and I keep making the level and quality cigars that I'm currently making, I think it's really just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I'm already starting to see that. I mean, year to date we're up 126%.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So I mean, and all of that's been through organic, not really through sales effort for the most part. I mean, so we haven't really. We're just now, as part of the reason why I hired Dave Lafferty, I see a future where I'm going to actually have to think about how to structure sales. Yeah. And most of what we've been getting to date, the bulk of it's either been event-driven or organically driven.
Yeah.
And the organic sales are really where we're doing really, really well.
Wow.
And, but we're in the cigar business, so, I'm doing well today means I'm broke tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's the way it is.
Are you guys more popular like in the Northeast, would you say? Or is there a certain part of the
No,
country?
not really. There's not any particular place that I think we're doing better than others. I mean, there's a few places that we're weaker. We're really weak in the Atlanta area. We're really weak in the Midwest. But that doesn't surprise me. Atlanta's a difficult environment because there's a zillion stores in Atlanta, but it's not like there's a market-leading set of stores. Normally when you have an area where there's like 60, 70 stores, there'll be like 3 or 4 that kind of set the tone for the entire metro area. That's not the case in Atlanta. Atlanta is really a bunch of really small shops. There's just an awful lot of them. And there isn't any stores that kind of set the tone for what's doing well. Whereas, in the Phoenix market, you have the same situation, but there's 5 or 6 stores that if you're in those 5 or 6 stores, you're probably going to find yourself in 20 plus other stores because you're in those stores.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean? So, right. So you kind of get that kind of effect.
We do have someone here who's asking, Alex is asking, well, when will there be an A size?
Yeah.
An A size.
He's just busting my balls. I have some general rules of thumb. I don't like cigars that make me feel like a gay porn star. So that gets rid of like all the super gigantes.
Okay, so no big.
And I don't like cigars that make me feel like a pedophile. And that's why I'm so opposed to like Lancero.
Oh, here we go. You made a Lancero.
And what did I name the Lancero? I named it Now Leave Me the Hell Alone. Okay, so I mean, and the thing about that Lancero is, so we did that first release of it, and it sold out like instantly. And so we're now taking pre-orders on the next ones, and I was going to make only 875 boxes. That's what I've actually made. And before the shows even started, we've already sold through all of those. So now I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Am I gonna make more? Or yeah, but it's not his fault because we literally just said it 2 days ago. So in 2 days, we already have surpassed,
Oh my gosh.
We can work it out. But I mean, yeah, it's, I just, and that's part of the problem. There's no way to guess or gauge. You never know. You know what I mean? Like literally, I'm going into this trade show, and I may have the best trade show I've ever had, or maybe because we've done so well year to date, I've already gotten the money. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll have a bad trade show because I'm already so far ahead of the game. I mean, I'm already, over $1 million ahead of where I was last year. So I don't know the answer to that, which makes it really hard on my end because the cigars we get cigars shipped in from both factories every single month. So we don't cut to order. In other words, I don't take your order. The Lanceros is different. It's a pre-order, but other than the Muestra de Sakas, I'm making every single thing every single day, day in, day out, and every single thing is getting shipped in the country every single month. So I don't ever really know how much of anything to ever really have. So the cigars that are getting delivered this month, I pulled the trigger on those cigars last September. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm always at least 8 years.
A little bit more.
I mean, I'm always 8 months off the curve from a production point of view. And then the tobacco that I have ready to go, I can sometimes be as much as 2 years off the curve.
Oh my God.
It's a very long lead item because, and again, it has to do with what I make. I don't make any value price cigars. I don't make any economy cigars. My lowest end product is Umbagog, and even it's a $9 cigar. I only make super top shelf stuff. That's what I do. And part of that's twofold. The first reason is, look, with this new company, I don't have any grand aspirations of becoming a giant company. I mean, I'm not a fool. I'm not going to fight with money. But at the same time, I'm not driving to some sort of sales goal.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that I'm looking to have something that, if I made a cigar that was $6-7, I know that I would sell a tremendous amount of it. But it isn't just a sales number for me. And then the other thing that's an issue for me is, at this stage of my life, I only want to make things that I would be personally willing to smoke or buy myself. So, and the thing is, I just don't smoke any sub $10 cigars. It's just where I'm at in my life. I've decided I'd rather spend $2 or $3 more and enjoy my hour and a half more than get a cigar for $7-8 that is a perfectly great cigar for $7 or $8, but it isn't the same. There's definitely a difference between the standard $7-8 cigar and one of my Sobra Mesas. You know what I mean? Or a Muestra or a Sin Compromiso. It just is. So I make the calculus that I'm willing to make that buying decision. And I think there's enough consumers out there that they're also at that point where they're willing to spend a little bit more for a lot better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and it's kind of where I'm at in my life. I'm more of a quality versus quantity guy. Now, of course, that's based on being able to afford it with your wallet. I mean, look, if your budget only allows you to smoke, $3 bundles, then that's your budget. But, that guy just isn't my guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about making something for that guy just so I can make some more money.
Where do you find like the inspiration for the next blend? So now that the Sin Compromiso's out, you know,
He looks at
going
fruit.
forward, where do you find the inspiration?
You know,
Looks at different melons.
Like you said, I mean that's a concept that came from reading something crazy that I clicked on. I think Yahoo News, because I was like, "What's a $250 musk melon, for God's sakes?" And that kind of led to an idea. But normally, I mean, in my case, normally the way it's worked is
My friend Paul coming Saturday.
there's a certain tobacco I want to work with. So then you start developing a product or a blend around a tobacco concept, which was the case with Sin Compromiso. There was a tobacco concept. Or there's, a general, you say, hey, there's for most companies, it's about a marketing thing. What do I have that I'm missing? For the most part, for me, up until this point, until just now, it's always been, okay, what is something that I want to smoke that isn't readily available? Or what is something, because all my blends are very different with the exception of like Mi Querida. Mi Querida is it's a blend that I've been smoking for 30 odd years. I mean, it's, Liga Privada was a recreation of cigars that Frank Yanesa and Estela Padron used to make at the Villazon factory. They were my dailies. Liga Privada was the recreation of those cigars that Frank and Estela used to make, but just at a much better quality level. Frank and Estela made $3 and $4 cigars, and I wanted to make a top shelf, ultra premium Connecticut broadleaf Maduro cigar. Mi Querida really is my personal replacement for that cigar. It's the only thing that I have, from a profile point of view, consistently smoked for 30 odd years, that one certain genre.
Would the difference be the age of the tobacco as far as the?
No, I mean, look, the blends are different. So even though I say, for me, it's just me, Mi Querida delivered me a similar smoking experience to Liga Privada number 9. But it's a totally different blend other than the wrapper. So it's giving you those same general earthy, inherent sweet, broadleaf,
Yes.
medium full, dense, chewy style smoke. But it's a totally different cigar. But it's probably going to appeal to that consumer. And whereas, my other products, Sober Mesa is super sophisticated, super elegant, super refined, very layered, very nuanced. You know what I mean? It's a very complex cigar.
Very complex.
Mi Querida is not a complex cigar. Mi Querida is a much simpler, more direct kind of smoking experience.
Straightforward.
Like Sin Compromiso. I don't like smoking Sin Compromiso outside in the wind. I think the wind takes away the smoke, and it ends up deadening the flavor. I think the aroma is really important with it. Whereas Mi Querida Umbagog, I can be smoking that in the truck going 50 miles an hour, and I'm still satisfied with it.
Yeah.
I'm smoking this in the car with my window down, 50 miles an hour. Yeah, it tastes good, but it doesn't taste nearly as good.
Right.
So I tend to make things for certain moments for myself, and then I put them out there, and I hope other individuals see the value in it,
So I've always wondered this. I have my thoughts about it, but I watch a lot of things on Facebook, and I see you and Mr. Skip Martin go at it quite often.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Well, because he says a lot of stupid shit, man.
Cheers to Skip.
And he's also a guy that lives in a fucking glass house. He's so quick to throw rocks at people, and the problem is, look, nobody will respond to him, and I'm like one of the few guys that I'll just give it right back.
So now, are you guys friends?
Yeah, we're friends.
Okay, yeah, right.
We're actually friends. Yeah.
I just wonder how many other people watch the go back and forth sometimes, and you just go, "Wow!"
But isn't that the way you are with your friends?
I
mean,
love
don't
it.
you-
I love
don't
watching.
you-
To be honest.
Don't you bust your friends' balls more than anybody else? So I mean, it's just and also part of it's also an extension of just. I think when we grew up, I mean, I've always been very active online. I mean, even in the late 80s and 90s, I was writing about cigars. I had the very first website in like 96. I was like the first blogger before the word blogger had even been coined. So I've always been really engaged on that type of digital platform. So for me, it isn't necessarily just a function of marketing. I mean, obviously there's a marketing benefit to it, but I was doing it before I was in the cigar business, and I'll do it after I'm out of the cigar business.
Yeah.
So it's something I actually honestly enjoy. And, you know, you learn a lot over the years. But the other thing, too, is you can't try to manipulate it. I learned long ago, you just have to be who you are. And the result of that's going to mean that some people are going to overly adore you, okay, and other people are going to absolutely hate you. And there's no way to control either end of that spectrum.
True.
And I always say, kind of jokingly, but not really, I mean, if Mother Teresa was in social media, she would have haters. And she's Mother Teresa, for God's sake. You know what I mean?
You're not getting you're not doing
yeah, so I mean, it's the way it is. So I think you see a lot of companies, they avoid the minefields by using social media as a tool where they'll post a lot of pretty pictures or they'll post links to good ratings, but it's always a very top-down, here's some information, push it out approach, where I tend to engage back and forth as much as possible. Yeah. I mean, I get into a lot of crazy conversations, and and some of them are risky and some of them blow up on me, but the reality is it's who I am. So to try to manipulate that or change it in the long run, I think is just a mistake. You just have to. It's not going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It also helps you build a loyal group of followers.
I often behind you. I often wonder what consumers think when they first meet me, because I mean, I see, this is not me, but I see words attached to my name like legend. Okay, I find that perplexing, but I see it all the time, and I'm kind of underwhelming. I'm a fat, schlubby white guy. My Spanish is horrific. I mean, I couldn't be any more atypical for an actual cigar manufacturer. You know what I mean? I certainly don't fit the mold by any stretch. And I sometimes wonder if consumers meet me and they're disappointed. On the other side of the coin, I'm one of the few guys that you could actually ask an honest question of, and you can get a real answer from somebody that actually knows about growing tobacco, buying tobacco, sorting tobacco, fermenting tobacco, factory operations. I can demonstrate all the different bunching techniques because I trained torcedores how to make cigars. So I have a real wealth of actual experience over the years, which makes for a much different kind of interaction because I can talk from a position of knowledge and I don't have to spin that part. So for me, those type of things are where I'm the most comfortable. Whereas, you're doing a fancy dinner for 150 people, getting up there and saying, we make the greatest, my family's the greatest, blah, blah, blah. I just feel it's not a comfortable thing. I mean, you know what I mean? It's
you gotta be you.
I'm not in, that's not my element. And for me, look, I'm not a moron. I want people to buy the cigars, but ultimately what I want is I want them to be very satisfied with their purchase so that they'll recommend it to their friends so that they'll buy it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So actually getting them to actually be satisfied with what they're buying is actually in the end far more important than the sales transaction. Because if the customers are happy, they will ultimately, the sales take care of themselves. And the other thing too is they're also very quick to recommend to others that, have you tried this? You should try this. I think you'd like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they become your goodwill ambassadors. And the honest truth is, him telling someone they should try a Mi Querida has far more value than me saying to someone they should try a Mi Querida because I got a vested cash interest in it. He's got no obligation in any way whatsoever. He's just sharing it because he really thinks you will enjoy it. He knows he enjoys it, so he thinks, hey, you'll enjoy it too.
Well, at the end of the day, if you have beautiful boxes and your marketing's on point, like you said, beautiful pictures, and you're throwing these big parties with dinners and everything, that's one thing. But in the end, the tobacco is going to speak for itself.
Right.
And if you don't have that product, you don't have the knowledge to create it, and the blends aren't on point, then you're not going to last long in the industry. So I think
we've seen so many companies come and go over the years. I mean, since the turn of the century, not the 20th to the 21st, but the 19th to the 20th century, there have been over 300,000 cigar brands in the United States. 300,000. It's crazy. I mean, look, every year, most stuff that gets introduced at the trade show, it has a shelf life of 6 to 8 months sell through, and then the retailers are stuck with it for another 8 months until they can unload it. Very few brands even make it beyond 3 years anymore. Even big companies, they'll have this big release of this extension on whatever, A. Jumpman or Monte Cristo or Partagas, and it'll sell really well for a year, and then it just kind of fades into oblivion to be replaced by the next new thing. So it's really hard to get a consumer to, really latch on. And so for me, look, I can't compete in the sales organization because I just don't have it. I can't compete in marketing because I don't have the budget. The only place where the playing field is level is actually on the product. I can make as good a cigar as anybody can make. And I get argue that I can make a better cigar than most people can make. So that's the area where the playing field's level.
Yeah.
But it's not 100% level because I can't do it at the price they can do it. They have all the price built in. So I have to do it to the point that it's actually that much better that the consumer makes the decision that, I'd rather smoke, this cigar for $12 than that cigar for $10.95.
So digging a little deeper on that, what about access to tobacco?
Well, see, again, it's very relationship oriented. And luckily, because of my past experience, I've made many of these farmers millions of dollars over the years. So that ultimately gives me a bit of a benefit there. I get Mi Querida and Umagog made at a particular factory, Nicaraguan American, which a third of the owner is the Oliva tobacco family. So my choosing to have cigars made there was not just because of getting cigars made there, but it was also about solidifying that tobacco connection because I provide their other business that allows me to be in a better position when it comes time to select inventory from them. But that's, and the other thing too is, look, when it comes to tobacco, there's no such thing as great tobacco. Every crop has great, and every crop has good, and every crop has okay, and every crop has bad. So it's a question of how do you get that crop? How do you sort and select it? How do you put it into certain products and not into other products? What do you do with the excess? You know what I mean? You couldn't, this is the thing. Take a brand like Padron. Padron Aniversario is the same tobacco that's in a Padron stock series. It's just they're selecting the better to go in their anniversary series, and they're selecting the even creamier cream of the crop to go into their 40 and 45th and 50th and hammers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's them. It's like a cow. There's only so much tenderloin in it. There's only so much, filet mignon. So you have to find a way to use all those components, and part of for me is, since I don't want to make lower end products, it means I have to sell that tobacco off secondary, which then adds the cost of my primary products.
Okay.
Because I'm only wanting to make the tippy top, but I can't just make the tippy top if I'm unwilling to buy all the other from the farmer.
Sure.
So then that responsibility ends up mine to then figure out what to do with those materials. And the cost goes up. And I just accept it. And what I've come to realize is, look, not every consumer, but there's enough consumers out there that do appreciate the difference, that they are willing to support you. And the other thing that's really nice about our business is we have very happy customers. People want our product to be exceptional. They want it to be good. They want to give you their money. You know what I mean? So if you do right by them, 50 cents here or 75 cents there is not ultimately going to make the difference.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's up with Saka Squatch? Where did that come from?
I used to be an executive at a company called JR Cigar in New Jersey. That's where our corporate headquarters were.
It's a small company, right?
Small time. Tiny company.
Tiny company.
And I ended up, but I never moved to New Jersey. I still lived in New Hampshire. So every week when I wasn't in Central America, I would drive to corporate New Jersey, stay in a corporate condo, and then drive back on the weekends to go home. And one weekend I got in the truck and I realized I didn't have any cigars. And there's no way I'm driving 5 hours without smoking. It's just not happening. So I ended up stopping into a local store, and you understand, I've never been on the sales end of things. So starting this new little company is really very new for me on this end, the retail side of things, because when I was exec at JR, well, it just wasn't in our purview.
Yeah.
And then when I was president and CEO of Drew Estate, we had 27 people that handled sales. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really in the trenches. So I very rarely would ever go into cigar stores, but I stopped at a store, did the Yelp thing, where's the nearest store, popped in to buy some cigars for my drive, and the owner goes, "Oh my God, Steve Saka's in my cigar store." It's like seeing Sasquatch. So they just started in that one shop jokingly calling me Saka Squatch. And I love all alliteration. So it's kind of stupid and goofy. And,
it's great. I love it. I never knew the story.
But yeah, that's where it originates from.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I have another nickname. When I was in the Navy, they used to call me Saka Khan.
Saka Khan.
Yeah, Shaka Khan was a very popular band at the time, and I was the youngest. I was on my ship for so long that I had basically ended up becoming a JOD, a junior officer deck underway, and you're actually the guy that cons the ship. You give the orders to the con, which normally is something that junior officers do. But I'd been on the ship so long, they let me qualify for it because I was just bored to death. So then they started calling me Saka Khan because I was conning the ship. So yeah,
wow.
Those are the two nicknames, and there's a third nickname that some of the people at Drew Estate used to call me. They used to call me Oso Blanco, and depending on my mood, I would either be the happy white bear or the angry white bear, right? Just depended, or it'd be Oso Blanco Gordo, the fat white bear. That was a popular one.
Your cigars are a family affair. Is this true?
Yeah. Well, again, when we started the new company is a family business. I mean, my wife is integral in the company. She's just as important as I am. And then my oldest son works in the company too. And part of it is, dealing for the oldest son is I don't know whether ultimately he'll stay in cigars and tobacco, but I wanted to give him the experience of running a small business. You learn a lot.
Yeah.
I know I've learned a lot over the years. So it's the type of education that you won't get, even when you're a really involved employee. It's not quite the same as being the owner. For good or bad.
How many kids you got?
I have two sons. And 35 and 32. So.
What are some other boutique brands that are in the market that I guess you have a lot of respect for?
Look, this is where I get into trouble.
Good job, Scott. Way to go, Scott.
No. I think it's an interesting question.
It is.
I'll tell you what. It's not even so much boutique. For me, the separating line is, are they actually actively involved? There's a lot of brands, but a lot of brand owners that really know very little about tobacco and know very little about cigars. They just happen to know more than the consumers are selling them to. So they appear to be experts, which is fine. I don't want to step on them, because why a consumer decides they like something or not like something, it's not really relevant that the guy that owns the brand is that guy, because you're just making a decision of, for example, I love oranges. I buy an orange. I know when it's a good orange. I know when it's a bad orange. I know jack dick about growing oranges, how to fertilize trees, harvest oranges. So it isn't necessary for me to be an orange grove expert to know which orange I like and which orange I don't like.
Yes.
So for the consumer perspective, it isn't relevant. They're just going to decide on the orange, the cigar that they pick, whether they like it or they don't like it, regardless of the story behind it. But for me personally, I tend to not smoke any brands that aren't made by people that actually buy tobacco, work tobacco, understand factory operations. So when you get into the craft boutique side, I'm more interested in cigars that are being made by Roma Craft. I'm more interested in cigars that are being made by Foundation, Nicholas. That has far more appeal than some of the other brands.
Now, you and Nick have history, right?
Yeah, well, Nick was my right-hand man in the factory at Drew State for 8 years.
And how did it feel to see Nick score so high this year? I mean, was
Good.
That's
Yeah, no, good for him.
it's a great thing for him, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, it's a good thing for everybody.
Such a good guy. He's such
Yeah.
a good guy, and a great cigar.
See, I think one of the things that a lot of consumers and even retailers don't understand is they seem to think that like Nick and me and Roma Craft and Illusione and Crown Heads, that we're competitors. Well, the truth is we're competitors with everybody. All my competitors are within a few square feet of me in every humidor in the country.
Right.
So the reality is Nick not being successful doesn't make me more successful. Because the real place that your competitor is trying to convince consumers why they shouldn't smoke some of the big mega corporation products, that they're just not as good. And that there's other cigars that for either the same money or a little more money are exceptionally better. And I think when you get a consumer that makes the decision that, hey, I'm interested in now smoking Foundation, I think it's only a matter of time till that consumer also says, hey, let me try Saka's cigar too.
Sure.
So what
sure.
you're trying to do is you're trying to make it one less sale for Monte Cristo, one less sale for H. Upman, one less sale for, because what am I going to do? I'm going to steal half of Nick's business. And in the end, that's not going to make a major dent. You know what I mean? The big sales are, how do you get that guy that comes in the store and just grabs the Oliva V because he knows what it is all the time, to not just grab that Oliva V? Those, for me, are really the competitors. And it helps my interest for these smaller brands that make higher quality products for them to do well, because it basically paves the way for all of us to get common acceptance. And that was one of the problems that when, 5-6 years ago, it seemed like there was a million little boutique brands. They were coming out literally all the time. And the truth is, most of them were rather subpar or mediocre. And that actually ultimately ends up hurting you, because it makes a customer less likely to try something new, because he tries so many new things that were ultimately dissatisfying. You know what I mean? So it doesn't behoove you.
Then they go back to the bigger brands.
And then they go back to the bigger brands. So you got to cut through that noise. So for me, when certain companies' products end up becoming the boutiques of choice, it actually improves all of our business. And oddly enough, even though the big guys don't see it this way, in the end, it actually improves their business, because it's the passionate side that's into the products like mine that drive the industry and keep it healthy and bring new cigar smokers in and make them become way more interested, so that eventually it expands it, because you want everyone to have a good experience all the time, no matter what they purchase.
Yeah.
And a subpar experience actually ultimately hurts all of us.
Well, and in fairness, for example, you used the Oliva V. That pushed the market at the time when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
That was same with VSG.
Right.
Like that pushed the market. That at that point, Oliva's, at least in their domestic side,
Yeah, they were a big brand, but they didn't have anything hot.
No,
They had nothing that had really caught.
That really changed the game for them.
The V is what caught. Look, it's the same thing. Look,
you know what I mean? Like,
look at Drew. It was Acid Liga Privada. You know what I mean? You can look at Pete at Tatuaje. Incredibly successful. I think we could all agree, right?
Sure.
Very successful. But ultimately, Tatuaje is the core. He's released a ton of great cigars, La Riqueza, Cabawan, Veracruz, you know what I mean, over the years. And in some stores, certain ones sell well. In other stores, they don't sell well. But Tatuaje has become the cornerstone for the company. You know what I mean? It's what drives everything. For us at Dunbarton, we haven't hit that cornerstone product yet. I don't know what it'll be. At the same time, I don't have any products that are decreasing in sales.
You wouldn't call the Silver Mesa cornerstone
I
product? I think that kind of changed.
I don't
the game
know.
there when that came out.
Look, we'll see. Time. Time is going to answer that question. Ultimately, look, I can tell you when I see a new product whether it's going to have a chance of doing well, but I can't tell you whether it ultimately will do well over time. Because in the end, I don't get to make that decision. The consumer gets to make that decision.
I agree with you, but a while ago you said you're doing much better than last year.
Yes.
That's a positive sign.
No, it's very positive. But am I doing? Look, the cigars aren't any better. The cigars are the same as they've always been. You know, is it because of more shops? Is it because of more brand awareness? Is it because of more consumer awareness? Is it because you can see my fat mug on YouTube too often? You know what I mean? Is it because of the Sasquatch sticker? Is it because Patrick's doing his job of visiting more stores? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's no way to really know what the reason is.
Ultimately, I think it's your knowledge and it's the tobacco.
You know, you'd like to think that, but there's a lot of really crappy brands that sell really, really well that I don't understand why people smoke. So it's not just that. Because if it was just that, there's some products that, well, why do they continue to sustain sales? And then you also see sometimes somebody will release something and, wow, that was really amazing. And 2 years later, it's non-existent.
Well, that's what I wanted.
So you see a lot of really great things that just for whatever reason, they don't click, you know. And
well, what is the reason why, or maybe not that? How are you gonna keep Sobre Mesa as the Sobre Mesa that I smoked for the first time 2 years ago? How is it gonna be that way?
The only thing I can do is just make sure that I buy enough tobacco to stay ahead of the curve and make it consistently. But I mean, the question is, you know, what can I do? And that's when you start getting into marketing. You know, what can I do to improve the marketing reach of the product?
I have an idea for you, Steve. Shelf talkers, for example.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, shelf
very
talkers, it's something, I think it's something, shelf talkers are one of those things where 80% of the retailers won't use them. So pretty much you're making 100% for only 20% to use. And
I don't reuse it.
also, I think the shelf talker needs to convey a story. The only reason I don't have shelf talkers, to be honest with you, is I don't have a graphic designer. So when it comes to like all the graphic design on all my packaging and brands, I'm the guy doing it. And I don't know how to do it.
How about your
So
wife,
I'm
your
like,
son?
no, it's sorry.
Everything has to go
So-
through you, basically.
I do everything. So
Wow.
I'm a bottleneck on these things. It's,
Ultimately, isn't it about the relationships you have with the shop owners and the managers of the store
Yes,
that are helping to educate the customers on your product?
yes and no, but ultimately, look, the retailer is going to sell what's selling. So, I mean, a retailer on relationship will say, yeah, let me bring the product in. I'll give it a fair chance. But he's not going to go out of his way to sell something that doesn't sell. You know, it's not. He's not going to make the investment in your marketing, and that's why you end up with those shops that are anomalies, where you end up with I call it a champion in the store, where you know a clerk that's there all the time is really into the product, and he ends up becoming the guy to be your
Sells your
ambassador,
stuff, yeah.
sells your stuff, because in the end, there's nothing as valuable as someone that works in the store giving a recommendation.
Sure.
And then the second thing is, and it's also one of the reasons why I try on social media to engage with individual consumers, because the truth is, them posting a picture of a Sobre Mesa or an Umbagog or a Todos Las Dias has far more value than me posting a picture.
So I have a question. Can you kind of go through the Muestra de Saka and kind of talk about that and the
Yeah.
blend and how that came about?
Well, Muestra de Saka.
Sure, pick the one cigar we don't have.
Yeah.
Nice job, Scott.
Muestra de Saka is a limited edition line where every vitola in it, every front mark. Front mark is the name that's on the box. A vitola is the size and shape of the cigar. So in Muestra, every vitola, every front mark is its own individual unique liga. It's its own blend. So it's a singular blend in a single size in a single name. So the Muestra de Saka line is where all of those cigars reside. And they're always some sort of personal challenge kind of project, something that I either normally wouldn't do or something I don't like doing, or, you know, so like the very first one, the Exclusivo, it's more of a milder, creamy style Nicaraguan, a bit softer, a bit sweeter, and all the filler in it is 5 to 7 years old. I don't typically like to use filler material that's that old. Most of my blends, I like the filler material to be a year to 2 years old because I tend to make punchier cigars. So I was trying to make something that I wouldn't normally make. The second one, the Naka Tamale is probably my favorite of the Muestras so far.
It's mine.
It's a Villa Granja style cigar. What that is it's a cigar that's made out of tobaccos that are just grown at one farm. It's an old farm style where, look, Silver Mesa is 7 different tobaccos, 7 different farms. Mikiria, 6 tobaccos, 6 different farms. We have gotten over the last 30 years where we make very complex, very intricate blends using a lot of tobaccos from a lot of different seed varieties and a lot of different countries of origin farmers. But that's not the way cigars were 30-odd years ago. Cigars, from a blending perspective, were much simpler. And a lot of these classic legacy brands that sell really well, they're actually very simple recipes, okay? But they're just done very consistently and very well done. And so I wanted to see if I could make a cigar that I would only be using filler from one farm and wrapper binder from another farm, only 2 types of tobacco, and make a cigar in modern times that could hold up to these modern standards of where we have so many ingredients to work with. And look, that's the same way Cuban cigars are made still to this day. It's only 2 authorized crops for the bulk of Habanos. There's a filler crop and there's a wrapper binder crop. And that's what all the cigars are made out of that singular tobacco. And that's what Naka Tamale is about, is doing that farm-style brand. I have a Unicorn, which is a crazy cigar. They're $100 a piece. That was about how wasteful can you be to make a cigar. We just did everything to the uber, most ridiculous level that probably doesn't make any damn bit of difference whatsoever, but you put all the money into the cigar. How much can you actually spend? And that was really just me out of spite because I would go into stores and I see these crazy brands that I've never heard of. Look, Opus X, BBMF, Padron 50th. I know who these companies are. But I would see these brands from these no-name guys that I've never heard of, and they're $100, $200 cigars. I'm like, what is going on here? So I wanted to see how much money could I actually piss away to make a cigar. And that's what a Unicorn is.
Just a challenge.
It's an exceptional smoke, but I can't lie to a consumer. I always tell consumers, is it 10 times better than my other cigars? It isn't. It just simply isn't. It's an experience. Treat it like Kobe beef. You know what I mean? Order it once in your lifetime, enjoy it. But in the end, you're probably going to order the ribeye the next time you go back to the steakhouse.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then the fourth one in Muestra is I did a special blend for a Lancero. I hate Lanceros. I've never liked Lanceros. The only other Lancero I've ever made before was the L40 under the Liga Privada line. Even on that one, I cheated. It was originally an L38, and I increased the size to a 40 ring so I could get another half a strip of tobacco in it to try to make it a little bit more complex. You know what I mean? So I've never been a fan of the format. So
you did blend the L40, right?
Yeah.
See, that's my favorite Liga. I love it.
And honestly, it's my least favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the
Lancero thing. I'm not a Lancero guy. Yeah.
You didn't like smoking?
Here's the thing. I've never made a Lancero that I didn't feel as though I could make a better Lonsdale. Just as elegant, 42, 44 ring gauge, and I have so much more room to work with. In a Lancero, it's like throwing darts at a wall. Oh, because you can only put 2 filler tobaccos. It's like literally, A with B, B with C, C with A. It's like there's no skill. There's no room in there to do any sort of backfilling. There's no room in there to do any sort of bunching technique. There's no room in there to do any sort of tobacco positioning. It's literally, there's like so little skill to blending Lancero. Now, there's skill to making one because of how skinny it is. But from a blending, from a ligador point of view, it's really just kind of like the Chinese menu kind of thing. And I've never made one
I love it.
And I've never made one that I didn't feel like I couldn't make it better. Like in Sin Compromiso, I have a 7x44.
Yes.
Right. That to me is a Lancero done right, but it isn't a Lancero because it's 44 ring gauge.
I'll take it.
But it gives you so much more flavor, so much more richness. And the other problem I have with Lanceros is there's so little commercial value in them because of the way Lancero smokers shop. Lancero guys are in love with Lancero shapes. So what ends up happening is every new Lancero that gets launched, they buy an entire box, they smoke 1 or 2 cigars out of the box, then they put it in their Lancero shrine, and they spend the next 10 years talking about what a great, amazing Lancero it was to never buy another one. You know what I mean? Because they're then chasing the next Lancero because that's what they're into is Lanceros. Whereas, a guy smokes a Mi Querida, Ancho Largo, Toro size, he decides he really likes it, he adds it to his rotation. It becomes a cigar he smokes regularly. There's very few Lancero guys that get locked into. It's not like they have 3 or 4 favorite Lancero brands that they buy on a repeat basis. They're always going on to the next Lancero. It's just the nature of the shopper. And as a result, there's very little long-term commercial value in Lanceros. And that's the reason why you find most shops are very reluctant to buy them. They're very reluctant to stock them because they just sit. The fact that we sold 1,700 boxes of the first one before they were even available was amazing. The fact that we just reopened the pre-orders and we've already sold another 875 before the trade shows even started, amazing. But in the end, this will be dead because it's a Lancero, and eventually everyone will have tried this damn Lancero, and then I'll sell 12 a year. That's what will happen.
So the original IPCPR, where you were introducing Dumbarton, the stories that I've heard were you didn't even have cigars for people to try, and you sold out of everything that you had.
One of the things that always chaffs my ass at the trade show every year is we as manufacturers give out cigars that are not ready to be smoked. And I just don't understand that. You only get one opportunity to make a first impression. So the concept that I'm going to hand somebody something that's too young, too fresh, not quite ready, and say, oh, it's going to smoke much better 2 months from now, 4 months from now. But we don't do that. Nobody goes home and puts it away for 4 months. No, it's new, so you want to smoke it. So in the end, when somebody is going to make a decision about whether they like something or they don't like something, I want it to be the way it's supposed to taste so they can make a decision based on what it's supposed to be, not what it's supposed to be 4 months from now. So for the first trade show, I was under a restricted covenant from Swisher. I wasn't allowed to start producing cigars until 60 days before the trade show. That was part of my non-compete. And the bottom line was those cigars just weren't ready to be smoked 60 days. So yeah, it sucked. But I went to the trade show, and rather than give somebody something that I knew wasn't right, I'd rather give them nothing. It didn't affect our sales, thankfully, but it is what it is.
I've never heard of a company selling out of their products without having product to sell.
Yeah, and we had no terms and no deals either. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. But who cares? That was 4 years ago. Who cares? That's history.
Well, I just want to let you know there are some smaller ring gauge smokers like myself
Yes.
who do rotate and do all those things like a regular smoker does.
Yeah, look,
We do it. There are some of us out there. I love 48 and below.
Yeah, well,
Love
and you'll notice that in almost all my brands, there's always something like that.
And I've been so
Because-
thankful.
because
That
I-
Cinco Permiso,
Like
that
I
size,
love like 6x48s is like one of my favorite sizes to smoke.
I
So
love
that's 646, 648. So there's always something in
Yes.
every line, and there's always 3 formats I smoke more than anything else. I smoke just regular old Toro 6x52s. I smoke thick Lonsdales that are somewhere between 6x46, right around that range. And then I like to smoke kind of oversized fat Coronas.
Yep.
That'll be like a 4x44, a 5x46, somewhere in that range. So I try to make sure that in all my lines, and this is just out of
No.
personal greed, that I want those for myself.
Yeah, I can't remember the
But
the
It doesn't always work that way. So like in Todos Las Dias, I have the half Churchill. And it's my least favorite of the Todos Las Dias. The thick Lonsdale and the double wide are my 2 favorites. So the size that I would think would be the one that I would like the best ultimately ends up not being the one I like the best. You know? And
I can't remember the name of the smallest Micarita is mine.
yeah, that's the Pequeño.
Yes,
Yeah.
that one. I mean, I smoked through probably 4 boxes of those. Just myself.
The problem with those smaller formats is it's no less work to make a small cigar than it is to make a large cigar. So in other words, the cost between making a double Corona and a Corona at a factory level is only about 15 to 18%. Because it's really just a question of the volume of tobacco that you're using, the weight. So the work is identical. I always tell people to think of it like a box. When you make a box, all boxes have 6 sides. They all have the same number of joints. They all have the same number of corners. So when you're making boxes, it's no less work to make a box this big than it is to make a box that big. It's just a question of how much money do I have in the wood to make the box, but the work is identical. And that's the same thing with cigars. The problem is on the consumer end, you're buying a cigar that's a 4x44, and it's going to smoke for 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You smoke a double Corona, and it smokes for 2 hours. Okay? The reality of the situation is the double Corona should be only $1 more than the Corona, but nobody would ever buy the smaller ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the dollar. So we kind of overinflate the prices on the larger ones, and we underprice the smaller ones. So in the end, because we have to make them all, because we have large leaves and medium leaves and short leaves, and farmers never been able to deliver to me all 17-inch leaves, so I've got to make something out of 13-inch leaves. So I can't sell the double Corona if I don't make the Corona. So we try to find a way to make the numbers work on the retail end. But where you get into the problem is when you start to say, hey, I want to make small sizes of things where you don't have this physical tobacco limitation, which would be the case like Mi Querida Pequeño Pequeño. It's a broadleaf wrapper. There are no small wrappers. The smallest of a broadleaf, I can make a double Corona out of. You know what I mean? So now what you're saying is you're actually taking tobacco that you could use to make a much larger cigar that you could get a much better return on, and you're intentionally wasting it to make a smaller cigar. So then you have to decide, hey, this cigar has to live or die on its own. And that was the way when we made Dirty Rats at Drew Estate. They originally out of the gate were $12 a piece, because my attitude about it was we don't need to make Dirty Rats. We have no short tobacco that we need to convert into a smaller format.
Makes sense.
Every Dirty Rat that we make means we're not making a T52 double Corona. So whatever the cost is the cost. And it's the same thing with Pequeño Pequeño. So you could get a Toro in Mi Querida for like $10.50 or something. A Pequeño Pequeño is an $8 cigar. So now it requires the consumer to say, hey, it's worth it to me to spend $8 because I genuinely really like the smaller format, not because it's $5.50 and the price has been artificially deflated so that price could be added to the other end.
What do you think about the idea that in each line, not just your line, but any line really out there, there's one size that typically smokes the best?
Almost always. It's the case with any blend. I mean, that's one of the beauties of doing the Moesta or the Saka is I don't have to worry about trying to make the blend work in multiple sizes. You know, and looking at certain blends, the blending, like in Sobremesa, there's really like 3 different blends happening. You know, variations of the core, and now 4 because I'm adding a Connecticut shade this year. But in the original, there's kind of one for the medium ring gauge, and then there's one for the stronger blend that's used in the short Churchill and the Elegante, and then there's a different blend that's used in like the Cervantes Fino and the Corona Grande. Whereas because there's such a wide range of sizes, where in Mi Querida, only the 2 very outliers, the Pequeño Pequeño at 4x44 has a distinctly different blend to it, and then the Grand Buffalo, which is 7x64, it has a distinctly different blend. Yeah. But all the other Mi Queridas, the difference between them is relatively negligible, and it just becomes a decision of whether you as a consumer would rather smoke a 5x52, a 6x52, a 6x56, or a 6x48. Those are the 4 core sizes. Whereas between those sizes in Sobremesa, there's a much bigger difference. Not in Mi Querida. You know, not so much in Todos Las Dias either, except the really small half Churchill is it's a lot more biting than the others, I think.
The Todos Las Dias, that's your strongest blend, you would say?
It's, you know, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's the most nicotine-laden blend, but it's very strong, but it's also very smooth. So, you know, I don't make any cigars that are like super bitey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like spice, I like pepper, but I don't like bite. You know what I mean? You know, I tend to steer clear of it. This year we're launching an extension on Mi Querida called Tricky Traca. And I think Tricky Traca is actually probably the strongest blend for the company. And it's patterned after a blend that I did a year and a half, 2 years ago for cigars we sold last year to one retailer. There's a retailer in New Hampshire that does an annual release called Firecracker. And I made a special adaptation of the Mi Querida blend for the Firecracker. Because for me, the name is really important. If a customer buys a cigar that's called Firecracker, I expect it to be really powerful. I expect it to be explosive. You know what I mean? So I wanted to amp up the Mi Querida blend for that. And so I'm now this year releasing a Robusto and a 6x48 in that amped up version of the Mi Querida blend called Tricky Traca, which is Nicaraguan slang for these firecrackers that they string together for celebrations. So I think that's going to probably be the strongest. But it's kind of that heavy strongness. It's more of a pressure than a bite. Kind of gives you that fat woman on your chest bouncing up and down kind of sensation. You know?
We've all been there.
Oh, man.
Switching gears a little bit, what's it like living in New Hampshire? New Hampshire.
Cold.
Cold.
That's where I was going next. Was I wanted to know what you enjoy about Las Vegas.
Leaving.
Leaving. So there's nothing about Las Vegas that's endearing to you.
I'll tell you what I enjoy about Las Vegas. First up, as a fat man, the food is just
The food.
completely over the top.
Over the top.
I mean,
Thank you. Yes.
I mean, there's no place in the world that you have as many unbelievable restaurants as you have in Las
Yes.
Vegas.
Yes.
That part is
All close
incredible.
by.
Yes, amazing. And look, you guys have glorious weather in the winter, but
It gets hot.
I'm in air conditioning. I'm sweating here. You know what I
It's-
mean? So I'm not built for
The heat?
no, definitely. So
That
but
helps you lose weight.
it helps you lose weight. I don't know. The restaurants are so good. It's impossible to lose weight here.
Not a gambler.
I am a gambler, but I don't like to try to squeeze it in. And the trade show is so busy
Yeah.
because you know how gambling works. I mean, you end up on these little streaks, and that's where you make all your money. And you're trying to make a streak happen in between trade show and dinner obligations and meetings. It's a very ineffective way to gamble. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I find gambling during the trade show to be I don't get any enjoyment out of it. Whereas if I just came to Vegas and I was here for 4 days with my friends and hanging out, gonna go eat some fancy dinners, visit a strip club, go to a show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then there's a place for gambling.
Yeah.
But then there's a place too for cabana time at the pool. You know what I mean? And the thing is with the trade show, there's no time for any.
No, you're not going to do that.
Yeah,
It's not there.
It's not possible.
So speaking of the trade show, what are your thoughts about PCA?
Well, first off, I think PCA is good. But
But
I
what
don't-
do you
I
think
don't know.
about the Saturday, the consumer
let me
day?
say this. I'm open to it.
Okay.
The trade show has been deteriorating in attendance every year. I think it's important. I think they're trying to find some sort of mechanism. Do I think it's the right solution? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I am happy to see something proactively happening. And, and it's kind of weird because I know everybody's taking very firm opinions on this already. And I'm willing to kind of wait and see. I'm willing to participate.
Where I am.
And I tell you, I remember when I was president of Drew Estate, I was at the TAA when Sindicato cigars were being released. And that was a big deal to all the manufacturers that now the retailers were going to own their own brand and they're going to be competing with us as manufacturers. And the sky is falling. And everybody was upset. I mean, everybody. And we were having one of these, 2 a.m, bullshit sessions where everybody was bitching about this whole Sindicato thing.
Doomsday scenario.
Doomsday, how this is so wrong, and we support them, and now they're stabbing us in the back, and yada, yada, yada. And I wasn't really saying much of anything, and finally, I don't know whether it was Pete or Rocky or Pepine, it wasn't Pepine, but it was one of those guys said, hey, what do you think, Saka? You're not saying anything. I said, I think you're all just getting your pennies in a twist over nothing at this point. I mean, we have no idea what's going to happen with Sindicato. As far as I'm concerned, they're like any other brand that's being launched. It's new. It's another competitor. I'm going to worry about Sindicato when I start losing shelf space at Drew Estate, okay, and they start biting into my bottom line. Then I'll start to think about Sindicato. But right now, let's just see what happens. And that's kind of where I'm at. And as it turns out, the sky did not fall from Sindicato, okay? It wasn't the doomsday that they were all glooming about. And I think this probably won't be either.
Yeah.
So I'm open to it.
I mean, as a retailer here in Las Vegas, I love the idea.
Yeah, look,
Holy smokes.
I'm curious about the details. There's some talk that the CRA may be or may not be. You know what I mean? That this is going to provide another funding mechanism, for legislative and judicial endeavors. Desperately need that money. So if it helps to grow that kitty, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As a small brand owner, gives me another avenue to communicate with consumers. That's a good thing. How much is it going to cost me? What sort of operational changes am I going to have to make to the booth? You know, am I going to need to be here an extra day? These are all details to be worked out, but I'm not ready to. I know what we've currently been doing, and as good as it is, it's not working long term. And I don't think it's an IPC PR problem. I think it's just a general trade show problem, period. It's just the world has become so much flatter with things like this.
Yeah.
Consumers know what's coming out. Retailers know what's coming out. It's not like 20 years ago you go to the trade show and you discover the new things. You know what I mean? We all know what's new. It's like, you
have to
know,
evolve with the times.
yeah, I mean, I think it's one of these things you can talk about, but ultimately you can't stop time. You can't stop progress. Look, I run out of deodorant. I'm one click ordering it on Amazon. You know what I mean? It's just the way things are. And we're not going to change this. So I think that we have to find ways to embrace it, because I think having a trade show where everybody gets together once a year, I think it's important in the industry.
I agree.
And I have to tell you, I'm really disappointed by the number of really good retail shops that just look at the trade show as a dollar and cents thing. It's more than just, hey, did I make more money in the deals that I saved than my cost of going to the trade show? Because it's more about getting together and communicating all and learning from others and sharing each other's experience. I mean, I get a lot out of the trade show that has nothing to do with the sales transaction value.
Sure.
And I think that the better retailers understand that, and it's the reason why they attend.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you can't distill. Look, if we're going to distill everything down to did I make money or I didn't make money, I would never do a single cigar store event in the country. You lose on every store event you do. You know, your travel expenses, your time, you know, you're giving away 5 extra cigars when they buy a box. Literally, everything that's bought that night at the event, I lose money on. But you still do them because you want to support the retailer, you want to have the customer interaction with the consumer, you want to have the opportunity to talk to them. So you can't just put everything on a balance sheet all the time and look at it like that. And I think the trade show serves a critical key purpose. So doing something with the goal of trying to make it better, more well attended, to re-energize it, I think is a good thing.
Well, that was a heck of a show, Steve.
Yeah, we've been talking for a long time.
Dude.
What?
What's
that?
What?
The new cigar?
Yeah.
You got a new cigar?
We got that Tricky Traca I mentioned.
Tricky Traca.
And then in Sober Mesa, we're adding 3 sizes called Brulee, and it's the core Sober Mesa blend that's been toned down a bit to make it milder, and it's with a Connecticut shade wrapper. Because
nice.
It'll be by far the mildest cigar I've made. And, it's still probably mild to medium. And, it's something that I don't really have in the portfolio for anyone. And so many of the legacy Connecticut's that I smoke, they just all seem really thin and wispy and uninspiring to me lately.
You know, I used to think that, and they're coming around.
And then on the other end, you have a lot of Connecticut's that are being launched that are very spicy and strong, and that seems almost like an oxymoron to me. The guy that wants spicy and strong, will he try one of those spicy, strong Connecticut's, the not your grandfather's Connecticut? But in the end, he's probably going to go back to smoking the darker Havana seed cigars that he's normally used to smoking. So I don't really understand that. So I wanted to basically make the very best version of your grandfather's cigar that I could. And that is what Sober Mesa Brulee is.
Excellent.
I call the Tricky Traca the Tricky Saka.
The Tricky Saka. The Tricky Saka. Well, sorry for those of you who are just joining, man. We just did an hour and 18 minutes of nothing but Saka,
circles.
baby.
Come on down.
No, the stuff here that people are commenting about. I mean, it's amazing that they love the fact that you're speaking so knowledgeable on this stuff. It's and there's not a lot of people that are like you, man. I mean, that's the truth.
One of the other secrets is I never watch any of these podcasts.
Well,
because then you become self-conscious. You go, fuck, he's an idiot. You know what I mean? You're like, and then you start changing the way you speak. So I've learned long ago, I never, ever, ever watch a single one of these. Because every time I just go, man,
Better late than never, though, right?
Hey, I'm just happy. We wanted to, we created this little space just for people to talk. We're just normal cigar people, like hang out in cigar lounges, and we thought, why not just do that?
No, it's a good
in
idea.
This position,
and people like the engagement.
Yeah. I
thing
like
is-
to know things about like what you like about Vegas and other things. I appreciate all the other knowledge as well. And I think that just a full rounded kind of experience of talking to someone is interesting. At least it's been so far for us. So we're really appreciative. Thank you so
All right,
much.
well, thank you
I
very
really
much.
appreciate
We
it.
appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the support.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
All right, Facebook. Well, we are going to take a break, but tune in. Don't forget, we've got Thursday show with Art Garcia, Friday with Cornelius and Anthony, Saturday Hirochi Robaina, Sunday Warfighter, Monday Dav, and I'm working on Eric Espinosa for Tuesday. So
Come on down.
come on down and visit
Come on
us.
down.
Come on down.
Right,
That's
Every
right.
video. I see that every video. Come on down.
We got Steve Saka saying, come on
Every
down.
single time.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Do I get a car with that? That's my question. I want a car.
Come on down. Thank you, Steve. That was
Thank you,
awesome.
guys.
Goodbye. Perfect timing. Casey just came on. See you, Casey.